Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Today's Down and Dirty was a request by someone, and it was if we could go over the grease points on an excavator. And you guys, if you watch my channel, if you followed me very long, you know how much I absolutely despise grease. So I'm not going to actually grease this while making the video, because I would be covered in grease, the camera would be covered in grease, you would probably somehow get covered in grease, because that's what grease is like. So we're just going to talk about the grease points on an excavator. So I'm going to spin you around, and I'm probably going to weird Colton out because he has no idea I'm about to do this. But here we go. Here's our excavator. This is a Doosan 225, so it's kind of a mid-range of your bigger excavators. And so we'll start down here at the bucket. This one has a quick coupler on it, which means you do have a couple components in here that are going to need grease. And because I'm not super familiar with this exact quick coupler, I don't know exactly where they're at. But this is, you know, this is a perfect example of the real world when you get on a job site. You kind of have to hunt and peck for grease nipples and see if you can find them. And I honestly don't know, which the next step from here would be go ask someone that does know, but I'm not going to do that because I'm making a video. So we're going to bypass the coupler and we're going to go straight to the actual hoe. So you've got one of your bucket pins here. You have a grease zerk that's going to be either here, or on some machines it will be on the end of the pin, just depending on the machine. Most of the time though, it's going to be right here, and we call this the dog bone. So you've got one here, you have two here. Let me see if I'm pointing the camera. Yep. So you got two here, and then you've got one here for your bucket curl cylinder. You're also going to have a zerk somewhere in here, and it looks like we've got it right here. Sometimes this one will be on the end of the pin, sometimes it's going to be back tucked up in this area. It just depends on the machine, on where that one is located. On all of these, the thing you have to keep in mind is every manufacturer is different, so you might have to hunt and peck a little bit. But if you kind of know the general grease points, you kind of at least know where to narrow your search down. So with this machine, you've also got a thumb. So we have grease zerk on this side for the thumb, and we'll spin back over here. And you should have the same grease zerk on this side for the thumb. This is a main pin thumb. And the reason it is called a main pin thumb is because, sorry about the sun guys, as you can see, it couples to the same pin as the bucket. Other thumbs will actually have a welded on attachment point somewhere up in here, and that's where the thumb would actually attach to the stick. We do have another grease point right in here for that guy, and I think you'd actually have to, and sorry, I'm hunting and pecking because I'm also kind of figuring this out on this machine too. You'd have to drop the thumb, but it is tucked right back up in there for the thumb. You're gonna have a grease zerk up here for the thumb cylinder, and then you're gonna have a few grease fittings up there, and the way that you get to those is you actually curl the stick all the way in, and that's going to give you access to those. But you're going to have, in fact, is that what you're about to do? Okay, so Colton's actually going to go ahead and curl the stick all the way in so that we can actually access those, because we do have a grease zerk up on top for the other end of your bucket curl cylinder. You've got either one or two, depending on the machine design, for your main boom and stick connection, and then you're going to have one for the boom cylinder up there. I'm sorry, the stick cylinder up there at the top. So when he curls down, we'll be able to access all of those. On larger hose, a lot of these you'll have grease blocks on the end of the stick that will run grease lines all the way up to those fittings, because on, you know, like a 385, you're never going to get high enough to be able to reach one of those. And so they basically will put a grease block somewhere on the stick and run grease lines to all those fittings. So now you can see we have a zerk fitting up there for our stick cylinder. You have a grease zerk right here, and there should be one on the other side. Yep, there's one on the other side. That's for the main pin for your stick and boom connection. Then we're gonna go ahead and move back. We've already talked about all of the stuff in here, so we're not gonna recover that. You're gonna notice we have a grease fitting up there for the other end of the stick cylinder, and we've got a fitting over here, and then on the other side for your boom cylinders. Those are actually handled by this grease block located right here. So this grease block is consistent on almost every single machine I have ever worked on. You have this grease block. That's going to hit all of your connections right up in here. and then it's also going to grease your main pin. So you have 2 of these grease fittings. It hits 1 on each side of your main boom pin right here. Then we're going to move down here. You have 2, sometimes it's 1 fitting for your turntable. A lot of times this guy, you can see the line actually runs around and it goes 180 degrees to the back side of the swing bearing. If you don't see 2 connections here, you have to crawl under the machine on the back side, or you can do it the way I've always done it because it's easier. I just rotate the machine 180 degrees and then re-grease that same fitting, and you're now hitting the other side of the turntable because you've swiveled the machine. That's another way to do it. You have a grease fitting here and here for your boom cylinders, and then this guy right here depends on the machine, and that's not going to take that much greasing. You're not going to grease it that frequently, but that actually goes to the swing gear for the swing motor. So that about covers all of your grease fittings on an excavator. Now, you may ask about the frequency. Whoop, watch your head. You may ask about the frequency of greasing. On most of these connections, I would say that is a daily grease, with the exception of your swing bearing. A lot of manufacturers, this is where there's a lot of debate, and I'm sure there's going to be debate in the comments here, but a lot of manufacturers, when it comes to the swing bearing, say you only need to grease it like, I don't remember it, but it's like every 100 hours or something. It's a lot of hours. I personally subscribe to the school of thought of, I would rather overgrease something than undergrease it, because if you overgrease, you're not going to blow anything out, you're not going to tear the machine up. However, if you undergrease, that swing bearing on that machine is, if I had to guess, on that machine is probably a $30,000 to $50,000 replacement, because the only way to change it is you have to unbolt the upper structure from the undercarriage, lift it off with a crane to change that bearing out. That is an astronomically expensive thing to replace, and obviously that machine is going to be down for a couple days while they do that. So I would rather overgrease than undergrease, but I will probably hit that swing bearing once a week if I'm doing really heavy swinging applications, or if I'm in a lot of water where it's getting wet, I may do it twice a week. But all of the other fittings, for the most part, I'm going to do on a daily basis, especially all of your bucket linkage, because that is always moving. It's always getting bashed into stuff, which squeezes the grease out of the sides, which causes the grease to leave the fitting, I guess you could say, or leave the pin quicker. Not to mention you're dragging that area through the dirt, which means that dirt's slowly working its way into that grease as well. So you have to counter that. So that is a daily grease. I would absolutely hit your bucket linkage on a daily. You could get away with your stick and boom stuff, maybe doing it once every couple, 2-3 days. But again, I'm always a subscriber to the school of thought of, it's better to overgrease than to undergrease. So that just about covers all of the grease fittings on an excavator. So as you can see, there's a lot of them. Electric grease guns, guys, they're the way to go, because it'll take you 5 minutes, maybe 10 minutes to grease the whole machine after you check your fluids for the morning. It's really not that bad. So with that being said, we're gonna call this one good. If you have any comments, if you have any questions, absolutely drop them below, and we'll catch you guys on the next video.